Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to give you all a few seconds to hop in as everyone files into the webinar. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. I'm going to go ahead and get started. It looks like we have people filing in. We have about 50 or so participants online right now. My name is Sarah Isher, and I am the Senior Program Manager for Work2Zero. We're really excited to have you with us today to discuss how we all can manage risks with EHS software and mobile applications. If you're not familiar with Work2Zero, we are a grant-funded initiative at the National Safety Council, and we are really tasked with trying to eliminate fatality risk with technology. So we are firm believers that there are readily available technologies today that can be used to save lives in the workplace. We love using this picture because it really shows how we have progressed throughout the years into making workplaces safer. And we really want you to kind of rethink how tasks are being done. So do we really need to send someone up in a lift, or could we use a drone to do an inspection? We are so thrilled that the McElhatton Foundation has funded our work, and we're happy to share that we have put together the Safety Innovation Journey. So it is a curated journey, kind of leading you through how to implement and adopt innovation in your workplace. If you're interested, you can look it up at nsc.org/work2zero. I'm sure the Work2Zero team will be putting that in the chat as well, so you can easily look at it. So we want you to understand that, implementing technology isn't impossible. We're here to make innovation accessible. And really to do that, we need to understand assess your risks and understand what risks your workforce could be having on the job. So we have information, technology kind of locator tool, and a risk assessment to help you understand where your risks are and what technology solutions could help mitigate them. The second step is really identifying different tech solutions, and I'm hoping that's why you're here today, because you're interested in EHS software and mobile applications. But we have lots of different information on this. Step 3 is determining your readiness. So we understand that you can't just go buy something bright and shiny and then you have a full-fledged program on your site. So really looking at your workforce and your work site to understand if you're ready to adopt digital technologies. And then step 4 is making the business case. So if you check out our website, we have 8 different safety technology investment calculators that you can check out to understand how using technology could actually save you money. That business as usual isn't always the best way to do things. And then once you're actually ready to implement and pilot technologies, we do have a roadmap for you that really follows a 4-step approach. So check that out. We're really happy with how this safety innovation journey has turned out. And like I said, if you're interested in looking at tech solutions, which I hope all of you are, we have several different web pages that include case studies, webinars, reports, just information from a lot of our partners on about 13 different technologies for you to look at. And our priority technology kind of calendar. Last year and the year before, we looked at immersive, drones, proximity sensors, and fatigue wearables and monitoring. So we have lots of resources on those types of technologies. And then this year, we're focused on computer vision and camera analytics, which we have a white paper and webinar on that. We have EHS software mobile applications, which the report just went live a couple of days ago. And obviously, this is the webinar for this one. And then coming up next year, we'll be focused on data and artificial intelligence and robotics. So, we're here to talk about EHS software and mobile applications. And how can this tech be used to create a safer workplace? Here in a second, I'm going to introduce our panelists that we have with us, but I want to go ahead and encourage you to put in the chat who you are, where you're from, what kind of technologies you're using. And I know that we can't all talk to each other, but I hope that this is an engaging webinar for you. So we're going to dig into how can this tech be used to create safer workplaces. And with us today, we have a couple gentlemen from Nutrien. Unfortunately, Carl wasn't able to join us today, but we do have Dustin and Jeremy. So Dustin, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Dustin Lammers. I'm in Nutrien's Information and Digital Solutions department. My main portfolio for the last 10, 15 years has been safety, health, and environment. Through that, I've led multiple initiatives rolling out technology mobile apps globally. So happy to be here.
Great. Thank you so much, Dustin. And Jeremy?
Yeah, I am Jeremy Millette. I'm one of the global directors of safety, health, and environment. I have multiple scopes and portfolio, from emergency response and governance, contractors and audits to analytics. Been with Nutrien about 5 years, but worked in oil and gas across Canada, the United States, Mexico, and a little bit of time overseas, as well as a number of other positions leading up to my career here.
Well, thank you both so much, and I'm really thrilled that we can really dig into what your organization is doing in this space. So just to get us started, I already talked about that, but we already, I do want to let you know that if you're wanting to ask questions at the end, we have the Q&A tab. So make sure that after the conversation where we have this moderated discussion with our speakers, we're going to open it up to questions to you all. Click that Q&A tab and put your question in there, and I'll moderate. So Dustin or Jeremy, I guess Jeremy, you want to get started with this? Can you share case studies or examples of using this technology for high-risk situations?
Well, I think to start off, I mean, we're trying, and Nutrien is testing a number of different software applications that are being brought to us to try and manage high-risk situations. But I guess a little bit further back, really, it's about enhancing engagement and getting away from a lot of paper that we still use today. And a lot of our business is still very strong in that legacy, keeping things in their files, keeping things on their sites, and about connecting our workers. But not only connecting them to the software, but having them be able to send live information or connect to the rest of the organization, as well as provide us with data and input that we can then transform and see if we can come out to a positive, or at least an informed output. So getting that live data is critical. Quality of input is something that we struggle with still, and I think a lot of people do in the industry. And Nutrien is really focused on moving from that pure descriptive space to find software and applications that can really help us quickly and accurately get into the diagnostic space and understand really consistently why, and then move us into that predictive space. And again, there are a lot of different applications that are coming at us. And so, like you said in the beginning, it's really critical that we have a good alignment to our risks. What problem are we trying to solve? And look at the organizations that are bringing this to us as, can this actually solve what we're looking for in the long term? And even evaluate the businesses themselves as far as their sustainability and longevity while they're providing us with this application. So we're out as a company to test and to innovate. And so we try and we look at and we source, and we also get lots of different meetings from lots of different companies to try and see if it's something that can enhance our business and if it's something that can work. The only other caution I would say around that is, adding more doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be better. So, and Dustin can attest to this, as our dedicated safety, health, and environmental information digital solutions team, which is a little bit different from some other organizations. We have a fully dedicated team. So adding more pieces makes things a little bit more complex, and it doesn't necessarily give us the best results. Dustin, did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think just focusing on a strong foundation, right? So we've worked hard to build a foundation that, as our programs mature and as we look for risk mitigation strategies, we kind of have that foundation. We've worked more recently to layer on connected worker, so mobile app technology. And really, Jeremy's team has done a great job providing analytics and a BI framework to have those near real-time insights. So if something happens, it's not weeks and weeks before people know and can look into it. It's, like I said, same day. So
I think that's great to hear. And it's also great to know that Nutrien is so dedicated to digital transformation and keeping their workers safe by having, a dedicated group of you all to work on this. So what I really heard was, like we try to tell people, it's so important to understand your risk, but it's also important to communicate with the workforce, understand what's going on, and then have quick feedback, and really communicate with the employees that are doing these hard jobs that they're important and that we're going to learn from our mistakes, right? And we can use technologies to help do that.
Yeah, I would say that that's a critical piece, is making sure that it's not a top-down or a prescription. It's not an application that we hand out and say, you must use this. It's really bottom up, inside out, outside in, all directions, that we come to a solution that works best for the people that are the ultimate end user.
Right, because as EHS professionals, we wouldn't have jobs if it wasn't for the workforce, right? So we are, we're honestly servants to them. We want to ensure that no matter what we're implementing, it's making their lives better and it's making them capable and able to do their jobs more safely.
And a lot of people come to us and say, I have a solution somewhere that I used to work. This is something that I used and it's fantastic. And, Dustin and I often, unfortunately, have to say, no, there's cyber risk or there's other things that we can't apply this solution to. So, it is a bit of a balancing act as well, with so many different applications coming towards us.
I think one of the things that we try to really reinforce is, what is the problem we're trying to solve, right? So, in the world we live in now, technology is ubiquitous everywhere, and people feel empowered to use it, which is great. But at the same point, we need to focus on what we're trying to do. And like I said, with that strong core, we can do those things kind of with the ecosystem we've built. So it's just kind of, focusing on what are the requirements, what's the problem we're trying to solve in the field, and then delivering quickly, right? Because if somebody comes to you and says, I got a problem, and it's 18 months before you provide them a solution, you've lost them, right? So
right. Yeah, you've lost that credibility and you've lost the trust. And so
100%.
much with the changing ecosystem within work it's all foundational around trust. Trusting the technology that you're using, trusting that the company that you work for is going to use it in the best way, and also having trust that the worker is going to complete the task the way they're supposed to be. So I love this conversation that we're having. I'm going to go on to the next question. We're kind of talking about it, but can you elaborate on the benefits of using this technology, and then really any measurable impacts you can share? And Dustin, I'll hand it off to you on this one.
Sure, yeah. So, benefits, I think Jeremy did a good job touching on them, right? It's making safety truly be able to be in the field and not be relied upon to, carry and manage data. So you're empowering your frontline staff, your supervisors, your leaders to, contribute and be part of the process. There's a lot of benefits. I could talk forever, but those are really the key points. And measurable impacts, I think, is just creating that visibility, right? So with that, core data entry, analytics, notifications, all those type of capabilities, the impact is just, timeliness of, being able to mitigate a risk or being able to support somebody in the field. So those are the two things that I had. Jeremy, I'm sure you've got a lot of good points to add.
Oh, I was just going to say that the connection again of the workers, and it's not just the safety professionals that are out in the field, it's every worker being able to, ultimately or ideally being able to interact and be able to provide that information. That gives us, like you said, without the workers in the field, we wouldn't have a position. We need them to be connected and to feel like they can easily use the technologies that we provide or that the company provides, and that they have ownership. And it was a part in their development that they came forward and said, hey, we worked on this together. And the impacts, for us especially, Dustin touched on it, we're trying to be data informed. We're not trying to be prescriptive at this point. We're still trying to figure out what it is efficiently, the top inputs that actually deliver those success or failure outputs, so that we can focus on them and not just keep adding things to our programs, and give our leaders the information that they need, and not a scatter, but just a very tight and very focused, information stream, so that they can make decisions. And then we can go forward, and success or failure. I know like Nutrien is very good at having a very open and trusting environment, where failure is still something that we can learn from, and it's accepted within certain limits.
Yeah, and it's great that you're willing to be vulnerable and share that there are failures, because how else are we going to, as early adopters, we have to learn from you all, right? Be able to help the next generation of innovators and adopters understand and learn from those lessons within the workplace. I really love that, you talk about how you can kind of tighten the plot, right? So it's not just throwing darts at the dartboard on what projects or issues we need to help solve for, but really tightening it up and looking at those kind of leading indicators of what your risk profile is at the workplace. Okay, the next question we have are, what are some best practices or challenges you can share regarding these? And Dustin, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. So, I mean, best practices, and I think this dovetails nicely into what we were just talking about. It's okay to try something and fail and try again. Because I mean, really, like embracing the ever-changing world of safety, health, and environment, or EHS. I mean, everybody's trying to change and stay fresh and stay relevant. So I think being able to do that same type of thing from a technology perspective is really good and empowering, right? So you can take a program, you can enable it with technology, and then maybe iterate and change and evolve. So that's what I would say. Never stop. Get those good feedback channels from multiple layers in your organization, because that's how you can continue to take that feedback from the front line. Challenges, I could probably write a novel about the challenges, but really challenges is just being relentless and being there. Sarah, like you mentioned, servant leadership is key. So earning that trust, credibility, and just continuing to support people, right? Like I said, so if it's okay to fail, you still need to come back with an alternative plan and a way to continue to build that relationship credibility.
Yeah, and technology adoption is really tough all around the organization. There's occupational culture and subculture that's developed over time, and it exists in different geographies that we operate in, and even different work groups that we have in the same geography at site. And some people are really good at having an open mind and moving forward into integrating technology, and some people aren't. So you also have to be, or we have to be, flexible, with what we choose, and the solutions that we have can't be rigid either. So they have to recognize when they're coming to us that we need a flexible, adaptable solution that may not be what they're used to under a traditional contract structure with a larger organization. And then we have, a really interesting time right now where there's a couple of different groups working with us in fleet and working with us in security and other areas, where they're starting to see how all the things that we do are starting to connect. And we're really starting to move into more of a consolidated space where we can get rid of or adjust some of the applications that didn't really make any sense, that are overlapping with others, and bringing us to more of a real-time, our fleet team calls it like the real-time operations center, and their goal is to have everything in one place where you have multiple applications, multiple inputs, they're all live, they're coming in, and you're able to switch between different views, but also take that information and transform it even further into outputs using analysis.
Great to hear. I think I could listen to you guys talk about this all day. We do have some questions in the Q&A chat if we'd like to go ahead and go through those. I know that we're moving a little bit quicker through this webinar than we had planned since we're down a speaker, but so please remind all the attendees if you have any questions, please put those in the Q&A tab and we'll get to them in just a second. I think the question that I have for you is how did you come to choose a certain software, or what were the aspects that you were looking at when choosing a software application database?
I came into the organization after Potash Corporation and Agrium merged the two larger entities, and
Okay.
so I don't really have as much history maybe as Dustin does on this.
Yeah, so it's funny, if we tell the story from a nutrient perspective, it's a little different because things were established, right? We had, 3 core platforms or 3 kind of platforms in play. And when we were working through our integration exercise, we had to really evaluate things maybe similar to a net new solution, but in a different way, right? We needed to make sure that we could change as the company grew and evolved, rapidly deploy the software and implement it globally. So in that case, it was a little bit different because we had software in place and kind of knew the pros and cons for each. But yeah, no, it was definitely something that we needed to take into account, right? Like flexibility, scalability, and having the team to support it, right? Because if you have a software product and you don't have the boots on the ground support, you're going to fail quickly and fail in a way you can't kind of come back from. So.
Yeah, great information. The next question is, I know we talked about that you're already past the phase, or choosing the software was beyond you, but do you have any advice for kind of those new innovators that are trying to choose the technology or looking past the sales pitch and choosing a vendor who meets their needs? How do you work through those conversations?
Well, we're not professing to be the experts, certainly. And so, I see, Cortiva in the chat here, and that's a good example of a connection that we have where we meet offline. We were connected through National Safety Council, and we meet with them and say we have very similar businesses, and can we just share information? And that's where I would say is, be vulnerable and ask. Ask other people. It doesn't even matter if it's the same industry. Just ask. How has your experience been? And can you share anything? And try and get that knowledge transfer. Because again, as you said earlier on, none of us are experts in this, and it isn't to the point. It isn't evolved to the point where we can say, yes, these 3 solutions are the top solutions, and that's it, and it's going to work for everybody. I don't know if we ever will, but safety is not a secret. I think it's something that we all, as professionals, live by. We're just here to help, and if our experience can help you, we're more than willing to share, and we're not shy about reaching out to others.
Yeah, that's why we have these conversations, right? And it's less about described PowerPoint, more about this discussion, because how else are we going to learn from what others are doing? Another question that's coming in from Eddie asks, what are some good safety program apps for beginners looking to track safety inspections and audits and the like?
I think if you Google, I'm sure you could find 50 solutions, but what I would say, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, Eddie, is make sure that you understand how you want your inspection process to work before you go and look for software, right? Because there's plenty of software, there's plenty of really quality vendors out there, but knowing what you need to get started, I think is good, because vendors build process for you. And if you're not kind of cognizant of what you need it to do, you could get trapped. And then again, that leads to a failure or it not working specifically for your needs. So lots of options out there, but what I would say is just, make sure that you have what you want it to do and how you need it to function kind of firm before you go looking.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to the next question that asks, can you be a bit more specific on the problems you were looking to solve for, and what type of solutions were developed based on your risks or issues?
You want to take that one, Jeremy? I feel
Well,
like I'm jumping on all these and you can take it.
No, The specific problems that we're looking to solve, I mean, they range from our incident management, our incident collection and transformation and reporting, our root cause analysis, to inspections, to auditing from SHE, PSM, and others, our corrective action planning, and our execution and timing. Specifically, we have some vendors that have come in to look at things like FMCSA drivers and doing some safety monitoring and some liability work with us. But holistically, I mean, the organization is looking to solve all of the same issues that others have around data collection and forecasting. One piece I would say, that we sort of stretched a little bit on is that we had an analyst working with one of our business units to do some really true predictive analytics and look at artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language processing as part of our larger contract with Microsoft. And so they're doing some exceptional work, and what they're trying to discover, they're trying to find the top hazards or risks, the input side, and frame it to 10 at the maximum that are causing all of the issues. And it's taken them down a number of different paths. The initial question was around top hazards, and it's gone, into different ways that we can apply this in different parts of our organization. But it's really interesting. And the natural language processing piece, I think, is really, really interesting, where people can type something free form, and instantly we can have recommendations around hierarchy of controls or recommendations around different frames that we've put in place moving forward on this machine learning.
That's great to hear. And I love how you're talking about how, different types of programs and softwares can work together. That really leads to another question. What other types of technologies are you using?
We've tried a lot of different things in the spirit of innovation. We have our core platforms, right, like Jeremy described. But when COVID hit and the world changed, we tried to do things where we could have coached inspections where we had our in-field operators wearing a headset, and they could have a video feed to do an audit or an assessment. So that was good. It didn't come without its challenges, but we did that. We have trialed with FLIR cameras across some of our operations to do IR inspections. Wearables, we've done something where we're doing, like Jeremy mentioned, driver safety with some additional monitoring and those types of things. So there's also drones used across organization for inspections, checks, all those types of things. So I think the big thing is there's so much technology. Like I said before, it's everywhere now, but if you try to do too much, you're probably going to do none of it well. So what I would say is focus on one or two key things that you'd like to do, and then look for the technology that can enable it or complement the process.
Yeah, and that's really what we talk about in our pilot and implementation roadmap, is really kind of focusing on one small pilot to understand barriers and issues there before you kind of do a widespread rollout. A question that Mike had are, what are best practices for implementation to ensure you're going to get consistent participation?
I think best practices, and this is one of the mantras that we in IDS live by, is business-led, IDS-enabled, right? So anything that we do from an implementation of software, analytical tools, kind of innovation, it always needs to be business-driven, right? So that's where I'm lucky to have somebody like Jeremy who can lead things from a business perspective. So that's the key thing. The other thing is making sure that your teams and your committees or the participants on any project is diverse from your operations, right? You don't want to be seen as corporate pushing something. You want it to be that cross-functional group that has insights and can really help influence and advocate for the solution.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you have your digital champions, you don't want them just to be C-suite level, right? Mm-hmm. You want them to be throughout operations and really understanding the tasks and risks that you're trying to solve for, but show them that they have support throughout the organization.
And everybody wants to be a part of it because it is, it is cool. I mean, it's interesting, but keeping your teams agile and flexible, you really have to have collaboration and communication with the right people in the room. Opening it up to larger groups sometimes stalls the process. As Dustin said, I mean, engaging people from each of the different stakeholder levels, having a clear plan, having a clear issue to solve and to rally around, even if it changes, at least a start of an idea to go and find a solution to. Traction, is another thing. We can, like Dustin said, keep coming up with new things. And if we don't, settle on something, we never will. So I think those are all issues that are best practice. I can't say that it's the only best practice, because it's not formed out that well, but it is something that we've had experience with, and at least best practice success and failure that we've experienced.
Looks like we have a couple more questions coming in. So from Cindy, she's asking, is there a thorough list of all available technologies for RMIS? I'm not sure on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different, technology evaluation aggregators, right? Like I know in the past we've looked at Verdantex. There's a bunch of other ones that kind of give you the evaluation, and there's the different quadrants, right? On, flexibility, maturity, best in class, all those types of things. So, what I would recommend is find somebody or find a peer group like Jeremy mentioned that you can rely on, that's going to tell you the truth, because no matter what anybody says, nothing's perfect, right? So I'm just seeing all the intros in the chat. I think this is an outstanding network to tap into to get insight, right? And not everything's perfect. Something that works for a company nutrient size might not work for a smaller company. So I think it's kind of a lame answer, but I mean, you can Google it and see all the different evaluations out there.
Well, it's such a broad space too. I mean, again, as I introed, there's so many different people developing different things at different speeds, and offshoots of other companies and people who are offering different things. The speed is incredible, and the amount of offerings coming up is just constant. We did work with Accenture, as Dustin mentioned, Verdantex, and there are some people who can potentially frame it a little bit more narrow. But I guess it's not a library. The National Safety Council here, you've published some papers and you've got some space, which can help point people in the right direction. But ultimately, like Dustin said, I think connecting with other people on this call, or even in the National Safety Council as a whole, I think is a good idea.
Great, thank you. And the last question that we have is regarding immersive technology. So do you know of any existing VR training solutions already exist, and where? We've been developing our own with a local vendor, but it's time consuming and expensive. Are you guys familiar with these types of technologies?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, Candace on the line, we've had some experience with VR, and it hasn't been good. It's been difficult to operate, expensive. The quality is not smooth. The engagement and user experience is 50-50. And even as far back as working in a well servicing company, we had some experience with driver training, and it made a lot of our drivers sick. So I haven't had a great experience with it, and I don't really have a great point to send you to. I don't know, Dustin, if you have any more or different information.
Yeah, we have partnered with a company called Myriad to do just a couple, introductory type VR training sessions. I think the feedback so far has been, it's been positive, but it's that same thing. Like, not every piece of training that an employee would take should be VR, right? It's almost that kind of that same mantra as mobile. Not everything should be pushed to a mobile device. It almost needs to be fit for purpose. So, yeah, I think we've had challenges. I think we've developed VR in all of our different business units, and to Jeremy's point, there's been challenges. It's not a silver bullet is what I would say. So if you have high risk activities, that it can be a nice complementary way to, mitigate risk. I'd say go for it, but again, go in eyes wide open, because I don't think it's that silver bullet some people hope.
And just back to the previous questions. Sorry, I had another point too. One of the things that we found has been really successful for us is opening the lines of communication with our organization. Like Dustin did a really good job of reaching out to our Australian operations when we were looking at commercial vehicle technologies and getting their input, and has done a good job with a lot of the camera and other monitoring, live monitoring in some of our other business units, and connecting me with that. So even internally, your own organization may be using something that could potentially work for you, or could have benefits, if you would just, connect with them. So definitely search around your organization as well, not just reach out to members on this team. It could be undiscovered and operating within your company.
That's great to hear, and I really appreciate the honesty on your response about VR technologies. So just one final chance, do you have any last closing comments or information for our attendees?
I see we have another question in the Q&A. Just popped in.
It says, how have you approached the technical support and onboarding of new technology? Site-based experts, centralized support through IT, corporate networks, etc.
We have two different information digital solutions teams. So we have, like I said in the beginning, the benefit of having our own dedicated safety, health, environmental, and sustainability team managed by Dustin. So the integration for us is really smooth. The communication occurs daily. And so we have different teams that work on different committees with each other, and it's very collaborative. And we work with the business as well as safety, health, environment, and sustainability to come up with these solutions. But then we also have this other IDS side of the organization, which Dustin is connected to as well. So we get the benefit of having a dedicated team, but then also having Dustin's team connected with the greater organization and the full horsepower of Nutrien in the IDA space.
That's great to hear, and I guess I'll add too, if you don't really know where to start, Work to Zero has put out a resource on digital rights, and you can kind of look at how to ensure you have the right mindset, skill set, and tool set to be more digitally forward and technologically advanced. So please check that out. It looks like we have another question coming in from Christopher. When you mentioned about having solid processes before digitizing them, what if you don't have those processes fully implemented yet, like area inspections and incident reporting? Do you suggest jumping straight into the tech, since people nowadays see that as a standard, or try paper and pen first before implementing them?
Yeah, if you're not regular, or I guess, let me answer the question in a specific way, and then maybe we can jump on it. If you don't have processes in place and you're looking to get started, what I would do is steward to any regulatory requirements you have. So, if you're bound by, provincial regulations in Canada or OSHA in the US, start there. And then as you establish that framework, you can always evolve for specifics moving from there. I think that's probably a fine approach. And all of the EHS or SHE IT vendors now do a good job. Like, they have subject matter expertise to build out base processes. So if you don't have anything, I think they could help you with that. But just be mindful that sometimes those processes are maybe not fully, like, they could be built in maybe a chemical manufacturing lens, and if you're in a different business than that, you just may run into some challenges. So just a word of caution. But yeah, that's a fine approach as well.
Yeah, the majority of the process, I think, is already established, at least at the minimum level through legislation, but even in doing some connection with other organizations or with NSC, we could find something that's evolved or exceeded into the best practice range. And then it's really not that difficult to take a workflow for something that's manual and work with your IDS team or with the software vendor and say, okay, here's the process as it stands today. You know, what can we do to make it more automated or more efficient, or move the whole process into your software solution? You know, I haven't had any experience right now with anybody that has had any challenges around that. I think the processes are well defined.
Well, thank you both. It looks like we've answered all the questions that have come into the Q&A. I really appreciate your time and conversation that we've had. Just a few last things that we have to wrap up the webinar. If you're interested in learning more about managing risk with EHS software and mobile applications, Work2Zero has just put out a report based on this. We really believe that this tool has the potential to be a crucial component of effective risk management strategy, like we've talked about today. And there have really been advancements that have helped make it easier for organizations of all sizes to access this type of technology. Like Jeremy was just talking about, you know, you can have a starting point and then work towards, you know, more digitally transformed processes. So the Work2Zero team will put that in the chat for you all to access that. Also, we have another report out focused on workplace violence and using technology to reduce risk. I know we've been pushing this quite a bit in our webinars, but I will say that if you're interested in learning more about preventing workplace violence through technology solutions, we will have a workshop at our Future of EHS event. That's in January. So we hope that you can join us in Long Beach, California for the Future of EHS event. We also have priority technology reports like we talked about coming out. If you'd like to review this webinar, it will be placed on YouTube. We also have the computer vision report and webinar. If you go to National Safety Council's Work2Zero playlist on YouTube, you can review any of our webinars. And like I already talked about, we have the data and artificial intelligence and robotics webinars and white papers coming up next year. And with that, I'd like to thank you. I will be pushing out a poll. This poll is going to ask whether or not you're currently using EHS software and mobile application technologies. We'd like to collect that information to understand who's using it, and you know, if it's a technology that people are looking to use, and also to help make these webinars better and to improve. We want to know if this information helps increase or clarify your understanding of the mobile applications and EHS software. So with that, Jeremy and Dustin, thank you both for joining us. You know, look to that chat in the list of contacts that they talked about. We have a great pool of companies and contacts that are in the same space. So with that, thank you all for joining us, and hopefully I'll see you next time.
Hey,
Thanks,
thank you.
folks.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care.